before we start, I would like just give a few warnings out there. It's always good to give warnings. If anything, like any time when you're talking about anything to do with the mind or meditation or anything like that, remember, because sometimes it can bring up like some discomfort or odd feelings. You can, because we maybe go into places that we don't normally go to, it can just feel a little bit alien. So if you ever get to that point, if you're meditating or just thinking about things, you feel slightly sort of like discombobulated or like disconnected to what's going on. Sometimes you feel really cool with that and you're happy to sit with it and whatever. But if it ever freaks you out or scares you and you feel uncomfortable, you must always like to step out of the practice at that point. Just have a cup of tea, or watch some crap on Netflix or something. Just something, just some sort of normality. And like generally, that is a genuine recommendation that I often give out to people. Like on our teacher training, if I get a message and they say, "Oh, I've done really deep meditation. I felt a little bit disconnected though," and things seem a bit weird. I'm like, just go and watch Netflix. Just go and watch. They think I'm joking, but I'm serious. It's like, just do something very normal that grounds you again. Because what we don't want to do is freak ourselves out by going too deep too soon. It's just like over exercising your body. If you overdo it and go too fast without preparation, then you'll pull a muscle or sprain a ligament or whatever. So it's no different with the mind. So the mind is just harder to fix, really. So yeah. So do take care. Always important. So a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about, I've got a list here for a change, because if not, you know what I'm like. I just waffle for like 45 minutes. But I've got a few things I wanted to just go over, so everyone's on roughly the same sort of page with what we're talking about. The sessions will go on for 45 minutes or so. Like, I'm pretty elastic with time, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more. If you want to leave at any time, please feel free. Like, I've got the hide of a rhino. You can't upset me, so that's fine. Just feel free to go and do something more interesting. You may find that I'm just too tedious to listen to. A lot of people do. So yeah, we're going for like 45 minutes. If you're not enjoying it, then go and do something you do enjoy. That's like a good recommendation. And also with all this meditation business, it's supposed to be enjoyable. It doesn't mean it's not hard. It doesn't mean it's not frustrating, and it doesn't mean at times you'll be like, just this is driving me mad. But like, set yourself up with a thing like, this is for my benefit. Nothing that's of benefit is ever easy. Like, good medicine always tastes pretty rotten, doesn't it? And all of this stuff is no different, I'm afraid. It's like, if it was easy and simple and it was tasted great, everyone would be perfectly happy and content. And we're not. So like, take that as a lesson. Like, just set yourself up with, take it all lightly, see if you can enjoy it, and just take some fun out of it. And before you know it, you may have just achieved the whole purpose of it and skipped yourself 20 years of work. So yeah, don't turn it into another ordeal in your life. But it's for your benefit. Like, you think, I'm doing this for my own good, and I hope I get great stuff out of it, and that might take some time. But that's the point, isn't it? It's not like we're doing something. It's not like going to work. Like, we have to go to work. We have to earn money. We don't necessarily want to go to work. It's just one of those things we need to do. But this is different. It's like, this is a choice. So don't make it an ordeal. Next thing is, like, a lot of what we're going to talk about, and I always say this on like trainings or intensives or anything, it is like, a lot of what we're going to talk about around the mind and meditation goes beyond words. Like, words can't necessarily go to a lot of the topics like, there is a lot of stuff I'd love to say, but I can't say it because it's sort of not really something you can put into words. Words carry so much weight as well, don't they? So many of us, like, our language just carries so much weight. Certain phrases carry so much weight. We have in our minds, every word and phrase and sentence has a significance. So something I say might be interpreted one way by someone else and then completely differently by another person. So I'd always say never hang on to what I'm talking about. Try to tune in more to the feeling of it, if that makes sense, rather than the actual literal meaning of every single word. And especially in this sort of stuff, like, you'll hear someone talk about mind in meaning one thing, and then the next person talks about mind and they mean something else, and so on. So I'll try and define what I mean by some basic terms. We'll start right at the beginning with really basic stuff, but um, yeah, just when you're like, I'm guessing most of you are turned up because in some way or another, mind is a problem for you, like it is for me and everybody, basically. Like, we're not alone. So, like, there are elements of mind that are a problem, for us. That might be anxiety, depression, irritation, aggravation, anger. There's something about the mind that we don't like, or that unsettles us, and you can't solve problems of the mind by using the mind. It's a little bit like saying, "I'm going to put this fire out by lighting another fire." Is that it's not? You can't think your way through this stuff. That's the that's the biggest obstacle probably that all of us have to overcome. Is that we're so associated with a thinking mind that tries to solve every problem, that we then try and solve those problems of the mind by using the mind to do it, and it's complete insanity and impossible. You'll just drive yourself around the twist. So you've got to really, as alien as that seems, you've got to let go of the thinking mind, and accept that the solutions you're looking for might not actually come from thinking it all through. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does. But I'm pretty damn sure that if you could have thought your way out of anxiety and depression and everything else, you would have done so by now. Because I've had 45 years of trying to think my way out, and it hasn't worked. It's just quite exhausting. And the moments that I do have that are calm and contented and peaceful aren't a result of trying to think my way out of it. There are moments that are outside of mind. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, anything that's a question, just shout at the end. So turn the page. Let's just get stuck into a few basic ideas. So here's what is the world? That's question number one. We go in with like the little questions. So what is the world? The world around us is just a product of our senses, you could say. Yeah. So I was a science teacher for quite a long time, and I did go to medical school for a brief period. Thank God I didn't finish. You'd all be doomed. But so I do love the science side of all this as well. But the world is a product of our senses. Like, the world is what we see, hear, smell, touch, and then through that, what we think about as well. And all of I don't really see this mug of tea or this caterpillar. My nan bought me this mug, I think, a long time ago. I don't see this. What I receive are light waves, and they're transferred into electrochemical signals in the nerves and then in the brain and so on. And then something bizarre happens where this thing called mind is like this weird interface of consciousness, and it interprets those electrochemical signals as things, as the world around me. So from just like electricity firing off in my brain, and chemicals flowing about, I end up with this entire world. But in reality, that entire world only exists as a product of my mind. It's a really bizarre concept when you get down to it. We will never know. There's no way of proving if all of us see the color blue in the same way. We all say, "Oh, well, that's blue." Well, maybe it is, but how do you ever prove that we're all seeing the same thing that's blue? Maybe that shade or whatever is always blue to each of us, but what we actually see as blue is completely, we just don't know. So, so there's this odd thing going on between brain and mind. Um, in reality, all that we really know is that the world exists as a product of this mind. So, mind is a. We'll talk about mind now. So that's the next definition we're going to have a quick chat about. So that's the sort of, this is all very rough and ready. I'm not going to go into like 2 hours of philosophy, although I'd love to. But there is. Let's think about the next thing. There is no such thing as the mind. Right? That's just a word. It's a lovely catch-all, a bit like virus and a bit like IBS. I think, like, like if you go to a doctor and they explore what's wrong with your stomach and they can't really find out, and they've done all sorts of scans, and they'll basically just go, "Well, you've got IBS," and that means we don't really know. But it's like this sort of general thing with your belly going on with you. And if you've got the lurgies and it doesn't come under any particular category, then you've probably got a virus. You'll be told you've got a virus. And the mind is the same thing. Like, there is no mind. It doesn't exist as a thing. The mind is a mistaken identity. Like, so what happens is we seem to have a constant and endless stream of thoughts and feelings and emotions. Yeah, like they seem to be there all day. But actually, if you sat down like tomorrow with a notebook and wrote down every single thought, feeling, and emotion that occurred to you through the day, what you'd see was that there was just a continuum of different emotions, feelings, thoughts, and so on that happened through the duration of the day. Occasionally, there might even be brief gaps, like you might be playing piano or drawing or swimming or doing some sport, and you'd notice that the thoughts just disappeared for a period or whatever. So, but what we do, because we mistakenly imagine that these thoughts just go on, never ending, we clump it into this thing called mind. But mind doesn't actually exist. It's not a thing. It's just a mistaken notion that there's this endless continuum of thoughts. And that's what we mistake mind to be. Of course, if you go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, they'll have a totally different definition of mind, I'm sure. So, like I said, don't hang on to every word I'm talking about. I know as little as anyone. I'm just explaining it as I understand it. So I'm not trying to tell you I'm right. So that's okay though. Like, even if we say, okay, I just misunderstand mind. Mind is just all right. I accept mind is just all these thoughts and feelings and so on, and that's what I call mind. My mental IBS. The next question would be then, well, why is mind a problem then? Why are we all here right now? Why have I spent so much time trying to sort my mind out, and no doubt you guys as well? Why are we dedicating so much of our time if mind is just thoughts? But it's not. It's those thoughts fluctuate, don't they? Sometimes I say I'm in a very happy state of mind, and then 10 minutes later, I might be in a very angry state of mind. And I'm sort of consumed by angry thoughts. I was just outside earlier and it was lovely and sunny, and I was sort of working outside and cutting wood. I was in a really happy state of mind. And then something just like went completely wrong. Something broke and spoiled my whole flow of the afternoon. And all of a sudden, I was consumed by a very aggravated state of mind, just like that. And everything then seemed to be an angry thought, for a short, 10, 20 minutes, until I sort of noticed it, and you see what's happening, and then you can step back out of it. But like, we get so embroiled in it. So, sometimes we think we're sad, sometimes we think we're happy, sometimes we think we're angry, and so on. But here's the big question: what does that actually mean? I'm going to give you an exercise. If I say I'm happy, these are the sort of questions I love. What does that mean? If I say I'm angry, what does that actually mean? It must mean something. How do I define that? If I say I'm sad, how I know I'm not happy, but what does sad mean? What is sad? So, um, like a 1 minute challenge for you to start is notice what state of mind is dominant at the moment for you. So it might be bored. If it is, that's cool. You just got to ask yourself, what does that mean? How do I know I'm bored? Oh, these are great questions, you know. If you're irritated, if you're feeling happy or content, that's cool. But what does that mean? How do you know you're content? So just take a minute, see if you can find, a label for how you're feeling now, and then see if you can work out what that actually means. How do you know that you're that label? This is awareness, this is the start of meditation. It's training awareness. If anyone wants to unmute and chuck in anything at this point, it's a good moment. Like if you want to unplug and go, I'm very disappointed in you. And I know I'm disappointed because all the hairs have raised up on the back of my neck. Hands up, maybe a visual hands up would be better. Hands up if you at least understand what I'm trying to get you to do. Oh, that's cool. Right, that's great. Brilliant. Hands up if you're finding that challenging. Yeah, it's hard, eh? Hands up if that's the first time you've ever thought about that. Oh, actually, I don't want to put my hand up for it. Obviously, he isn't because I wrote it down. But it's a big question. So I'll give you a few suggestions that might help. Um, there's a relationship that we don't notice. Well, we do notice it sometimes, but not for most of the day. And this relationship is between our thoughts or our feelings, our emotions, and our somatic self, if you like. By which I mean like our sensations, physical sensations, the movement of the breath, things like that. Even feeling sweaty or whatever. There's this relationship. We don't necessarily notice it. We sometimes notice it. So like often my example would be like you're walking down a dark street at night and you hear footsteps behind you, and then you hear those footsteps getting closer, and you have a very strong physical sensation, don't you? It's very strong somatic sensation. So like you might get very tingly, your body might get tense, ready to run, your breath might get faster and more rapid, and so on. And you will notice that, your mind will notice that, and you will go into this very hyper vigilant state. Obviously, that's a really gross example of that happening. But there's a massive mistake there, because what happens is, and this was actually like in Buddhism, for example, they would say this is one of our great, and yoga, they would say this is one of our greatest misunderstandings. And I know a lot of you are going to go, oh, here he goes, his favorite topic. But like they say, this is one of our great misunderstandings. What the misunderstanding is that we mistake the external thing that's happening as the source of our mental condition, if you like. So we mistake the footsteps behind us to be the thing that we're frightened of or, scared of. But actually, that's not what happens. We What we don't like, or what we're averse to, is the sensation in the body that arises when we perceive those footsteps. well, not perceive, we've gone too far, when we sense those footsteps. Yeah. So we cognize something, there's knowing, I know there are footsteps behind me. That's just awareness. Yeah, that's just being conscious. If I'm not conscious, I'm either in deep, deep sleep or I'm dead. Yeah. So like I'm conscious there are footsteps behind me. That's nothing. They're just footsteps. They don't mean anything. Then based on like my past experience and history and watching films and goodness knows what else, I recognize, like I recognize, or there's recognition. This recognition is like an evaluation based on what I already know. And I think, because I've seen some dodgy films and I've been told about people mugging you, that footsteps behind you late at night could be a bad thing. So when I recognize that awareness, something happens in my body. Now, the response I get, the fear, is to the sensation in the body, not to the footsteps. The footsteps are nothing, they're just a sound. Yeah. But the big mistake, the klesha, the avidya, what we call our ignorance, is that I mistakenly think the footsteps are the source of my fear. And that's a gross example. But we do that with every single thing in our life. So I get an email, I get uptight all of a sudden because I'm worried about getting an email through or it says something. And I mistakenly think the email is the source of my anxiety or my, whatever, frustration. The email is nothing. The email is just electrical, whatever email. I don't even know what emails are. I'm not. I'm too stupid to know what emails are. They're made of something. I don't know what it is, but they're definitely not the source of anything inside me. But they cause something to happen in my body, and then there is a recognition of that sensation. It might be very subtle. That's why we don't notice it. And then I mistake the email to be the source of my problems, where actually it's not. It's just it's a mistaken identity. Yeah. Now this happens with good things as well. So there are certain things in life. Someone comes up and goes, "You're great. You're amazing." They're your worst enemies, by the way. Beware them. They like blow your ego apart. But someone comes up and goes, "Oh, you're amazing. You're so cool." And you're like, "Oh yeah, man, I'm awesome." And you feel all tingly and good inside. And it's like this tingly feeling. You're like, "Oh, I like that tingly feeling. I'd quite like to get that tingly feeling again." So then you try and impress more people because they can say you're awesome as well. And then you feel, and you end up, you can see like in that example how you would chase something that you thought made you happy, but actually what you were chasing was a pleasant sensation in the body. Is that making any sense? So like when I asked you how you're feeling right now and what does that mean, there will be a somatic embodied sensation related to what you're feeling, but it could be very subtle. Yeah. In fact, it is subtle. It's so subtle that most of the time we don't even notice it's there, and it's in the blink of an eye. All of this happens. So the if you want to go back to Buddhism, the Buddha said that when he was in his deep, deep meditations, this is what he noticed. He noticed this chain of events that we miss the rest of the time. And he said that was our greatest misunderstanding about how the world works. And that's why we spend our whole life chasing what we think makes us happy and running away from what makes us apparently unhappy or sad or angry. But actually, neither of them do anything. So what we do is we feel this agitation all the time, mental agitation, and then occasionally we get temporary respite from it, like a temporary mental. So it's bonkers, like it's completely mad. We set up this mental agitation and then we try and like satiate it by getting what we think we need or getting away from what we think we don't need. And temporarily we get like a little bit of peace from our mental agitation. And we mistakenly think that that's happiness, but it isn't. It's like what I call fool's gold. It's like pretend happiness. And we know it's pretend happiness because it doesn't last forever. It's like if it was real happiness, it would never go. And what we mean by real happiness is something very different to this fool's gold happiness. Yeah. So, like, real happiness is our natural state of being all the time. And it's not like, oh yeah, I feel so good, it's all tingly and lovely. It's much more of a like contented, peaceful state where there's no need to chase anything and no need to run away from anything because you see that they are just illusions, like a mirage in the desert. You think, I'm so thirsty, I keep going and walking to get to it, but I never get to it. I get to it and it doesn't really quench my thirst because it isn't really, you know, real. Holy mackerel. I like to set it up with like the good background because if not, we've got no idea why we're doing all this meditation stuff. There's so many people jump onto meditation courses and stuff, and then they just get loaded up with a load of mantras and things to do and practice and thumbs to twiddle and all that business, and they don't actually know what they're doing it for. So I'd never go to a piano lesson, like if I didn't know what a piano was. It'd be bizarre. So, like, if you're going to do meditation, you want to know what the purpose of it is, why you're even embarking on it. So, we could say, we're moving on to meditation now. Don't panic. We're getting there to the meat. You could say that meditation. And again, meditation is just a word, yeah. It'd be lovely if I could. I had this conversation the other day with one of my friends. I was like, we were just like, can we think of a better way to describe meditation? Because it's really naff. It's like it's been around too long, and it just carries too much weight. That word, the M word, is just man. Let's just call it meditation for ease, though. But we could say that meditation is simply waking up to that misunderstanding, that you're chasing the wrong happiness and you're running away from the wrong unhappiness. If through meditation you keep observing that happening and you become very observant and very aware, over time slowly you'll stop doing that. Oh my God, I am the worst chaser and runner awayer ever, which is probably why I got so deep into this. I've had more jobs and pastimes than you could shake a stick at because I thought they would make me happy. But it's exhausting, and like I really got to a point where like, my God, this is shattering. I'm like, and I still don't seem to be any happier. So you never find it. You never find it. Which is why, when you're out in India, you see like people living on the street and just with the whole family, and they've got some weird sort of contentment. There's some acceptance there, and then you meet billionaires. I've taught meditation to billionaires, and they are miserable as well, man. They're as miserable as the rest of us. So we could say that meditation was just waking up to this daydream, to this mistake, and what might happen is that you get glimpses of like this other sort of happiness, which is very different and much more peaceful, just as part and parcel of doing the meditation thing. Right. Yeah. I think the more you practice, the less interested you'll be in chasing stuff. So how do we start? So you can't start anything like without, like if you're going to, right, let's imagine we're going to do a jigsaw puzzle. If I'm going to do a jigsaw puzzle, first thing I do is clear all the crap off the table, and like my table is full of crap. So like I clear all the mugs off and the pens off and the laptop. I clear a nice big space. I prepare the ground for the jigsaw. Yeah, it's a bit like if I'm gonna sow a new lawn. If I'm gonna plant some seeds out. First of all, I prepare the grass. I prepare the ground, turn it over, you pull out the weeds, da-di-da. And it's exactly the same for us in meditation. So the first thing we practice in meditation is actually what we call concentration. It's not really, in the truest sense of the word, meditation. It's often delivered as meditation. People say, oh, we're going to practice meditation, like in a yoga class. But then what they inevitably deliver is actually concentration, which is something different. But concentration is super important as well, and if you develop your concentration enough, then it turns into a meditation. So our concentration just is a way of developing internal quiet. Yeah. So if I said to you, we're going to practice some meditation now, chances are you would go and like turn your radio off, turn the telly off, close the door because the kids are, beating each other up or whatever. Maybe that's just my kids. But, you create some external quiet. But then we need to create some internal quiet as well. Like the external's easy. Put some earplugs in. Make yourself comfortable. That's the other one. Like don't be distracted by noisy aches and pains and stiff backs and stuff. Make yourself comfortable. Don't lie down, ideally, because you'll fall asleep. But other than that, be comfy. Yeah. Meditation, no one ever said it was some sort of battle against your body and pain. It can be if you like that sort of thing, but I'm not really into that. So you make yourself comfy, you reduce all the external noises. Then we need to start to reduce the internal noises. And the internal noises are, what's the point of this? Oh, did I send that email to Steve yesterday? I meant, oh God, I haven't paid the car tax. Oh my God, do I need to pay the car tax? We're in lockdown. Is that important? Oh, I don't know. Like, these are the internal noises. Yeah, we want to try and just find some peace from them. And we're not trying to turn them off. Like that, it's like it's no different to holding your breath. Like if you held your breath, you'd feel uncomfortable because breathing is a natural thing. Like if you try and force your thoughts to stop, it will feel very uncomfortable because thinking is that's the thing. It's just a natural thing. It just arises and disappears. So we're not trying to force anything to stop. We're just trying to put our awareness on one thing, like our concentration on one thing. And if you train yourself to focus on one thing strongly enough, then you just won't be disturbed by, is the car tax due? Did I send that email? How am I going to pay the bills next week? Whatever it is, you just focus on one thing. And you find that when you're not giving attention to those other things, they literally don't exist anymore. Like, what exists is only what's going on for you. Like if you decide it doesn't exist, there could be a giraffe like walking about behind me right now. I can't see it. So to all intents and purposes, it doesn't exist. To me, it may to you because you could see it, but to me, it wouldn't exist. So we're just moving our attention away. Now, what you concentrate on is up to you. And different things will work for different people. I'm going to talk you through like a brief concentration practice, and you can focus on my voice because I'll keep bringing you back when you wander off. Yeah, but I'm going to give you some simple ones. So the first one you could use is like what I call eggy breath. I don't have any spiritual names for my thing. I thought eggy breath, you'll never forget it. So in eggy breath, it's a bit like box breath, but better. So box breathing is where you breathe in for like 3 or 4, hold it for 4, breathe out for 4, hold it for 4, in, hold, out, hold, and you do the same. Yeah, but that's not really how our breath moves in the body. No one breathes in for the same amount of time that they hold their breath in for, and so on. But an egg shape sitting in an egg cup actually does mimic our natural breath pattern quite well, because there's like an incline as the inhale goes up the side of the egg. Then you get to the top of the egg, and there's a very brief pause, like as you just go over the top of the roller coaster, and then you just let go of the breath, and it falls out of the body. There's no effort. And when you get to the bottom, it sort of slows down, and there's a slightly longer pause at the bottom of the egg. And it rolls round and then it goes back up, and you follow that pattern round, and that will just fit your breath pretty perfectly for most people. So I'd swap out your box breath for an egg breath. So that's one to try. The other one we'll try we'll just try 2 today. The other one we can try is like what we call blanket awareness or deconcentration of attention. So we deconcentrate our attention instead of concentrating on one thing. We let it dissolve over everything. And I would suggest you do that with sounds. So you listen for the loudest sound, the quietest sound, and then you listen for every single sound in between those two. And you try and hold all of them in your attention. It's not possible. So you have to dissolve your attention. So I'll go now. Well, we're going anywhere. I'll start now. I'll lead you through. We'll start with a bit of breath. If the breath works, stick with it. If you're struggling with the breath, that's totally cool. Not everyone digs the breath. We'll go on to some sounds. You can integrate both if you're really flashy. So, okay. Now, eyes open or closed, of course, it's your choice. Got nothing to do with me. Sometimes eyes closed, you can drift off into a daydream. Sometimes eyes open, you get really distracted. So sometimes you just have to try both. So just bring your attention to the shape of the egg. Yeah, sitting in an egg cup. We can remove the egg cup, but that's the way the egg is sitting. Wide bit at the bottom, narrow bit at the top. And just start to follow your breath round and round the egg. Now, how you visualize that is up to you. You can follow, like sometimes I follow like a little spot of light around the outside of the egg, like a glowing line as I follow it round. Sometimes I don't. But just see if you can do one lap of the egg without thinking about the car tax. And if you manage one lap of the egg, go, oh, well done me. I'm going to go for another lap of the egg, like a celebration lap. And if you notice that you have started thinking about the car tax, or John next door who's been throwing rubbish over in your garden, you're not going to say, oh, I failed. You're going to say, well done me. I noticed that I was thinking. That is amazing. Like it's not a failure, it's a success. I was aware enough to notice that I was thinking. And then you come back to the egg again. And you might think, oh, I'm no good at this. I can't even get around the egg once. Well, if you notice that you thought that, that's fine. Just let the thought be there and just come back to the egg. The thought doesn't mean anything. It just appears and it disappears. And as your breath falls down the side of the egg, just let your shoulders and your face and your neck soften. And as your breath climbs up the egg, just notice a sense of space. Like the breath moves in, you just feel a gentle expansion in the body. You go over the top of the egg and it just falls out of the body, and you let any tension just fall out with the breath. And you find you're thinking about the car tax again. You think, that's good, I noticed that, well done me. I'll come back to the egg. In an ideal world, I want to be noticing that I'm thinking about the car tax 1,000 times. When I don't notice it, that's when I become completely distracted by the mind again. And you can carry on with the egg if you like in the egg. If not, I'm going to add something else. You can do both. So you're going to just listen out for the quietest thing you can hear. And that thing will change from moment to moment, from second to second. Might be your breath, might be some sort of electrical hum in the house, or a car outside, or birds. Well, a bit dark for birds, but just notice what the faintest thing that you can hear is. Notice how that's always changing, just like your thoughts are always changing. Sounds come, sounds go, thoughts come, thoughts go. In fact, the thoughts are no more significant than the sounds. We just imagine they are. And then see if you can hold that very faint sound in your head and add to it the loudest sound that you can hear. And that might be my voice, but my voice comes and goes. It might be your breath. Your breath might end up being the loudest thing you can hear. I don't know. But see if you can hold the faintest and the loudest things both at the same time, even as they keep changing. Now, see if you can fill in the gaps with everything else that you can hear, all at the same time. Can you just let your awareness dissolve over absolutely every sound within your field of awareness? And when you start thinking about the car tax, or the email you didn't send, or how much longer is he going to carry on with this shenanigans? I'm feeling a little bit irritated. I thought he'd be done by now. That's fine. Just notice it was there and let it go again. Come back to the egg, come back to the sounds. That agitation that we feel all the time, that we should be doing something else. Every time we give in to that agitation, um, we're stepping back into our mind, you know. We're stepping, taking a step away from our true happiness. We're back into that searching for something that's going to make us happy. That's what agitation is. However mild it is, slight boredom, slight irritation, slight feeling that I should be doing something else. That's all chasing mental happiness, that fool's gold idea. So every time you notice yourself thinking, I should be, just recognize it for what it is. I'm chasing again, or I'm running away from again. What about if I just stop moving mentally and physically and just stay with what I'm doing right now? So you just come back over and over again, back to your egg, back to the breath, or back to the sounds. If you don't like the sounds, you can do it with physical sensations, faintest and the strongest sensations in the body. Doesn't matter what you use, completely irrelevant. Use a prayer if you want, a mantra, whatever. Just something to completely focus on. just take another half a minute or so. And again, if you've been distracted or you've wandered off, it's not you that's wandered off. You've just, you have become distracted by mind or by thoughts. Yeah, that's all. You can't really go anywhere. There's nowhere to go. Cool. And then we're just going to take 5 breaths. So we're going to start at 0 this time, and we're going to count up to 5. So these are slightly deeper breaths, just slightly more energizing. So just take 5 complete breaths, counting up to 5. And when you get to your 5th inhale, you might like to take a big stretch or whatever shouts out to you. I have no idea. You might not want to do anything. But yeah, just like as if you're just sort of rounding off your practice. Just a nice way of sort of sealing it. And try and set an intention for yourself. Really simple one. Like something you might focus on tomorrow or the rest of the day. I don't know. I have no idea what that is. It might just pop into your head. Maybe you're just gonna set aside 5 minutes to do this when you wake up and open your eyes in the morning. Everyone's got 5 minutes when they wake up, surely. If not, then set your alarm clock 5 minutes earlier. You can make 5 minutes. So I suspect, I don't know, I have no idea what happened there for you. It's nothing to do with me. I hope you noticed you were thinking about the car tax a couple of times. That would have been great. When you stop getting irritated by noticing you're thinking about the car tax, that's great as well. That's even better. Just like I noticed it. It's no different to thinking, oh, I just noticed that car drive past outside. Or I just noticed, a cramp in my shoulder. Noticing that you're thinking is no different. Yeah, so, like, next week, we're going to talk about who is this person that's doing the noticing? Who is this noticing the sounds, the sensations, the thoughts, the feelings? Who is this person? This is another big question. It's like, because we tend to confuse ourselves with being the thoughts and the mind, but we know we're not, because chances are for at least 1 second over the last 10 minutes, you probably weren't thinking about anything for a second or two, maybe longer. You didn't vanish. I can tell you because I was watching you. So, like, you are wholeheartedly not your mind. That's just something that comes and goes. Thoughts come and go. So only when we get misidentified with the mind that we really start to suffer, because then we imagine ourselves to be something we're not. And yeah. Coolio Iglesias. Any questions? You don't have to come back next week, by the way. You're more than welcome. But this could be enough for you for the next 10 years. Like, take what you need, chuck out the rest. Yeah, I mean, but what I would say is it's better to do 5 minutes every day than to do an hour once a week. It doesn't really work like church. Little often is great. And if I were you, I would say little first thing in the morning when you wake up, unless like the kids have woken you up and you've got no excuse. But if you can wake up, or middle of the night, fab. I often wake up in the middle of the night. I'm at that age when I need about 10 trips to the loo. I sometimes can't get to sleep. That's a good time. I'm like, wow, it's quiet. No one's harassing me. I've got however many hours it takes me to drop back off to sleep. I've got nothing to do but watch my mind. It's a good time. And as soon as I start doing that, I bloody fall asleep. So we're in meditation time. But work it in daily rather than once a week. So yeah, please shout if you got any questions, or you can message me after, or ping me after, whatever. I'll hang on here for a few minutes as well. But yeah, other than that, I hope that was useful and not too much too soon. I just wanted to give a rounded view of it all, and then we'll work on little elements each week. But yeah, work on your concentration if you haven't already. Don't get frustrated. Well, you're all more than welcome. Thanks for giving me some time. Sorry if it was rubbish. And yeah, more than welcome to come back next week at 6. And yeah, ping me anything you need. Just ping me anytime. Not like we've got much on, is it?